right, welcome back for another episode of Sneaky Keys, my spiritual successor to Hidden Gems, where I talk about some books that you may not be aware of that are worth more than you might think. Just some surprise little books, some things from like second prints and some weird categories, and just some books that, again, aren't the popular things. They aren't the hot books of the week, just some things that you might be able to go and hunt and dig for that may get you a better return than you might expect. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. Make sure you join me tomorrow for my Whatnot sale, as I got a bunch of these fantastic 4-packs to auction off. Rip, ship them however you want it. Up to you guys. Auctions starting at $1. So come check it out tomorrow night at 8 p.m. before I do the Hot 10. So with that all said, if you want to see this week's rundown of books, just hang out for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so let's get this started with the first category of books that I want to cover here, and these are related to X-Force, specifically a little 3-issue miniseries that came out many, many moons ago that, again, is a fun story to read, has really cool cover art, and a couple of the books do pretty well. So we're going to start off with X-Force, Sex and Violence. I know, it's already intriguing, right? You hear that title, you're like, ooh, your ears perk up. But this is a pretty cool series. One, like I said, 1 of 3 issues. Domino, Wolverine. You got some Delato covers, which are really awesome. And that's what we have here on this first issue, which really doesn't do all that much. So keep that in mind for now. It's a cheap book that you can go find out there that average sales are only like $5. There'll be, again, some outliers, some higher, some lower even. Like you get lucky, you get those really cheap copies that may not be really nice, but it's a copy. And then you get some higher grade stuff that may go for a little bit more and may cross that $10 to $15 mark at times. And then you got graded, etc. So I'm giving you numbers that are just baseline, ballpark, mainline averages. So on average, this thing is not that expensive. $5 will do, and you can get yourself a decent copy of this first print for issue 1. Now, listings, if you go shopping, you'll see there's some $5 to $10 ones. By and large, there may be a more expensive one that's in higher grade. There may be something cheap. There may be some weird outliers that you just can't explain why they want so much. It happens. But with that said, I'm going to note on this series that all 3 issues, the sets of these things go anywhere from $15 to $40. Again, broad range as far as things go. You can get some really, really cheap. You can get some for a few bucks more, but that's for all 3 issues. But the real standouts here aren't the first prints. The real standouts are the second prints. So that's where we're going to go next. But we're going to stick with issue 1 and look at the second printing for issue 1, which, again, features an awesome cover here by Delato. I mean, again, this thing's just sweet. It's just good to look at. And this thing does pretty well. You can see at the top, second printing variant. It's clear as day in the little Marvel box up at the top. But with that, you can still find these things go for a little bit more than that first print. So with that, average sales on the second print for this issue 1 are $15 to $30. So again, you find this thing cheap in a box, $5, maybe even $10. I mean, it's really up to you. You make the call. I give you the prices. You make the decision for yourself what you think a good deal is. So with that, $15 to $30 on average are what this thing sells for. While listings right now, and there aren't many, it's about $50. So $50 is what the current market is online, but who knows what you might find at your shop near you. And again, that's kind of why I'm telling you this stuff. Things are going to be different all over. Like, I live in Jersey. You might be watching this. You might be across the country on the West Coast. You might even be overseas and over in the UK or something like that. Options are going to be different for everyone. Prices will be different. But baseline, broad strokes purposes, these are the numbers we can look at, and you can make a decision based off of that. Now, another note on this particular one, this is the second print for issue 1. There is a 9.8 listed for $300. So there is like the seeking upside that you can look for is a high-end 9.8. If you can find one, maybe you can get some big bucks for it. I say maybe because, again, that's listed. That doesn't mean somebody bought it yet. Somebody's asking that. We'll see if the two meet and there's a buyer that matches up with that seller, and we'll see what that price goes for. But there it is, issue 1. You got the first print, you got the second print. So now let's move on to the first printing of issue 2 next. And we have issue 2 of Sex and Violence. Once again, really cool cover. Delato cover. These are fantastic. They just jump out at you anyway. Also, the interiors also match the cover. So It's a great series. It's a great series for a great read, too. Issue 2 does a little bit better than issue 1. It's averaging about $10 as far as sales go, while listings also a little bit better, $10 to $20 on average. Again, there's some higher end outliers. There could be a sneaky lower one here or there, but by and large, that's what you're looking at for the first printing of issue 2. And like issue 1, this issue 2 also had a second print that is also pretty difficult to find and can be pricey. And that's what we're going to look at next here. So we got our first prints. Now we've got our second printing variant for issue 2. Once again, Delato, you got Wolverine jumping, a lot of blood, a lot of violence, as is to be expected with this explicit content, mature reader storyline. This book does better than the first one. So you can see here with average sales being $40 to $75 on this second print for Sex and Violence. Asking prices, average listings, also wide range. They can go pretty low at about $35 for this book, but as high as $100. So again, big range on this book as far as asking price goes. So who knows what you might find and what you might be able to luck into when you're digging in a box. But just to note, I did find a 9.6 sold for $100. So if you don't get that beloved 9.8, you only get a 9.6. There is kind of your upside. So you got to factor that into your pricing too. You don't want to overpay expecting a 9.8 and then get a 9.6 because it could hurt you. You might not get the return you're expecting. So with that, those are our first 4 books with the first prints and the second prints for issue 1 and issue 2. So I guess for our one to watch for this series, we're just going to look at the final issue of the run, which has no second printing. It's just on its own. One print to look out for, issue 3, all by itself. Again, Delato wrapping up the series. It's still a cool book and one to look for. Averaging $10. Again, it's not setting the world on fire as far as pricing goes right now, but it's done better in the past. Who knows if it'll rebound sometime in the future, but $10 on average with asking prices, much like issue 2's first print, in that $10 to $20 range. So we'll see where this one goes. Again, no second print option here to make things really interesting, but that's what we're dealing with. However, there is a 9.8 listed for this particular book, issue 3. It's listed at my comic shop, mind you. So it's listed on my comic shop's eBay page as well as on my comic shop. They're seeking $445. Just saying. It's an asking price, but that's out there. And the other issues for this series in 9.8s, I believe, are also on MCS, looking for a similar kind of price point. So, hey, good luck. Good luck to the seller, but that's a big ask. I just wanted to point it out. It seemed like an interesting note to me. Now, that's the first thing I wanted to talk to you about. X-Force, Sex and Violence. Fun series. Keep an eye out for it. But before we move on, I want to remind any of you out there who need supplies, use my code RENNA10 over at BCW to save yourself 10% off your whole order. That's your bags, your boards, your long boxes, your short boxes, CGC boxes, top loaders, pages for cards, top loaders for cards. Basically anything to keep your comics or collectibles safe. You can find something over at BCW. And if you're going to shop over there, you might as well save some money by using my code RENNA10 to get yourself 10% off your entire order. You help out the channel, you get yourself a discount, nothing to lose. So with that, let's move on to our second room of the museum and see what we have here as our next installment of Sneaky Keys gives you Marvel must-haves. Yes, Marvel must-haves are basically just reprints. Collected edition reprints that may have more than one issue in them, but reprints nonetheless, but with some cool covers sometimes, and not the easiest things to find. So these are actually pretty interesting to go and hunt and go and dig for. So keep an eye out for Marvel must-haves. Starting off with this one that's always jumped out at me. I mean, we're talking about puppy dogs and rainbows instead of blood. It's just a fun idea, and it hits when you see this thing in person. I remember first finding this just in a box for $1 and grabbing it just because of the puppy dogs and rainbows. And then you come to find that, hey, it actually does a little extra. This collects X-Force issues 1 through 3 of that secret Black Ops type team of X-Force, where we had X-23, you had Warpath, you had Wolverine, darker, bloodier take on the team. I think Clayton Crane did some of this art back then. But this reprint for issues 1 through 3 had a $5 cover, so it was $5 on the outset, but it sells for around $10 to $20 right now, which ain't that bad. This used to be much higher. Like, this was in demand at one time, even hitting the Hot 10 list, I think, once or twice. Listings are seeking a bit more than those average sales, looking for $20 to $50. That's more what I remember for this book back in the day. Yeah, lower end, you get a little bit of a ding, maybe a spine tick or two. you're going to get closer to the 20, but those higher grade ones, $50 all day used to be the price. We'll see if we get back to those numbers as far as sales go, but right now, that's the average listing. And once again, issues 1 through 3 here. And just to note, there are some asking prices even higher than what I've given you. Again, I gave you the broad strokes, 20 to 50, but there are some listing, over $100, $100 plus. It's just those are outliers to me, and I don't want to work that into the average. So again, I'm trying to give you an average, but remember, there are outliers on both ends of this thing. But that's our first one. That's our first Marvel must-have that you should keep an eye out for, but there are more while you're out there digging. More of these collected editions that do better than you might think. Coming up with this one, Frankencastle. So this is a reprint of that weird storyline where Frank Castle was basically brought back to life as a Frankenstein monster Punisher. Yeah, it happened. It happened. It's actually a really fun run. There's some variants, and it's pretty tough. It can be pretty expensive, but that's the original OG stuff. The reprint here on the must-have isn't that bad either. Granted, it's not a ton with a $5 cover, but averaging $10 right now. So $10 on average of what the sales are, but asking prices are more like $20 to $30. And again, you're going to see some outliers, but $20 to $30 is the, by and large, the asking price for this particular book, if you can find it, at a good price. So again, you're digging in a shop, you find this in the back issue bin with just Punisher books with the annuals or something like that. I'm not saying it's going to be in a dollar bin. Maybe it is, but maybe it's just there listed for $5. And you go, well, you know what? For $5, this is kind of worth picking up. Up to you. But that's my second option for Marvel must-haves. A third one to keep an eye out for is this end run for Ms. Marvel. So Ms. Marvel at the end had some really cool covers. Some were, kind of sought after here at the end. With Ms. Marvel, like those last 5 issues or so do pretty well on their own, like 45 through 50, which features the death of, I think, Captain Marvel or something. And they have that homage cover with Ms. Marvel. Anyway, this is kind of reprinting that War of the Marvels right here. Well, actually, this isn't the very end. This is actually collecting issues 39 to 41. But like I said, there were some cool covers near at the end. But with that, this thing also, much like the Frankencastle book, is about $10 if you could find it. So Marvel must-have on average sells for about $10, while listings are looking more like 15 to 25. So again, not the biggest book in the world, but still something you might want to consider grabbing if the price is right. So we'll file Ms. Marvel right there with the pile of other Marvel must-haves to look for as we come near the end of this segment of must-haves with one of the more popular ones and one that I always look for. Always on the lookout for this one because these were actually numbered for a while. So this is technically issue 22 of Marvel must-haves. And then they kind of ended up being like one-shots and like no numbered, not part of a series. But at the time, this was like right in there, I think, is issue 22 of Marvel must-haves. And this features the first 3 issues of NYX, which, as you can guess by the cover of this, does feature the first appearance of Laura Kinney, who ends up being X-23, etc. Now, reprint. No doubt about it. This is a reprint. It is what it is. But it was one of few reprints at the time for this book and a much cheaper option for many collectors who didn't want to go and pay the, $1,000 9.8 or whatever this thing is these days. I think it's still at least $400 or $500 raw in any grade for this NYX1. But this is a much cheaper option, as you can see here, with average sales of about $30 to $80. So it's still not cheap, but it's cheaper. So with that said, those are the sales, 30 to 80, while listings are seeking more like 50 to 100. So that's always the case. The asking prices are always going to be a little bit high as deals are made. Auctions come in here, bring some of the numbers down sometimes. Best offers are made and deals are cut. That's what we're talking about here. But average listings on this particular book are 50 to 100 bucks. And if you can find it in high grade, good luck. You did a good job because while a CGC 9.8 sold for 200 bucks recently, listed ones are seeking 400 or more. So keep that in mind as well, that even though this is a reprint, it's still got a big price tag on it. Cheaper by comparison to the original first print, but pricey nonetheless. Now, with that said, that'll wrap up the first 4 that I have for this part of the segment, but I do have one more to watch for you, and that's the next issue. I think it's issue 23 in the must-haves run, which basically finishes up the NYX run with issues 4 and 5. So you kind of want both of these to get that whole mini-series collected in 2 books, as opposed to 5 individual issues that might cost you a ton. And this one also features that popular cover on issue 4 featuring our X23. Because again, I'm sorry if I misspoke earlier, but yes, Laura shows up on that cover of issue 3 of that run. So issue 1 and 2 kind of get forgotten about. Everybody wants that issue 3. And then issue 4 is a close second for the first printings. These are even cheaper options. So with that said, this is about 10 to 20 bucks as far as sales go for this issue 4, 4 and 5. Or Marvel Must Haves a number 23 or whatever it is, while listings are, again, kind of in that same ballpark of 10 to 30 bucks. And you might find pairs for like 50. So you might find these even paired up together, these two books for only like 50 bucks, which ain't a bad deal when you look at some of the individual prices for that first issue alone. Now, before we wrap up, I mentioned it at the start. Whatnot, I will be on there tomorrow night at like 8 o'clock. Going to be doing some of these fantastic 4-packs. I got other stuff too that I'm probably going to get rid of. I got an extra Friendship Unleashed. I'll give you the dog biscuits with it and a bunch of other fun stuff. So come join me. Everything starts at $1. So it'll end at what it'll end at. You know, no big deal. It's just I need to clear some space. I got stuff I need to get rid of. And I got some of these fantastic 4-packs to auction off tomorrow. So you can join me. And if you haven't tried Whatnot before, you can join me with a free 15 bucks in your pocket by signing up using my link below. You don't have to shop with me. You can use it with anyone else out there. Buy whatever you want with whomever you want. But if you do decide to shop with me, you can get 15 bucks by signing up, being a first-time buyer, and getting 15 bucks on Whatnot and credit. So think about it. Free money if you want to give it a shot. You don't have to, but think about it. Now, final segment, final series here. This one is kind of fun and kind of pricey. It's been out there for a little while, but Call of Duty Zombies. You all know it's a very popular side, I don't want to say side quest, but kind of side game in the Call of Duty series. I believe it's part of the Black Ops series. I'm playing Black Ops 6 right now because it's free on Game Pass. I don't play zombies all that much because I prefer the more head-to-head sort of action you'd get in with the regular multiplayer. That I just think the zombies just kind of overwhelming and whatever. It's just not as much fun for me. Maybe if I played with other people online as like a team, it could be a little bit more fun. But I'm generally a solo flyer when I play. I play whenever I have free time, which isn't often. So I usually just fly solo when I can do it. But enough about me and my gaming habits. Comic-wise, Call of Duty Zombies is something you need to keep on your radar. Now, this is the first series. There is 2 runs of this. There is Call of Duty Zombies 2, another mini-series, which does okay, but nowhere near as well as this first series does. So here we go. Issue 1, Call of Duty Zombies. All of these have awesome Simon Bisley covers. Really cool. Issue 1 is the best of the bunch as far as, you know, your return's going to go, as this thing sells 80 to 120 bucks. Not only does it sell, that's the asking price, and it meets that price. So as you can see, 80 to 120 bucks, by and large, raw is what you can get if you can find one of these issue 1s of Call of Duty Zombies. So keep an eye out for it. This particular cover, it jumps out at you. But also look for the fact that 9/8 can sell for $350. So $350 for a 9/8 also ain't bad. That's just some decent numbers on this particular book. Not sure how many of you are aware of it. You know, Call of Duty Zombies. I mean, not a lot of video game, you know, spin-off titles or whatever comic books do this well, but there are a few. That's our first book. This is a 6-issue miniseries, and yes, you can bet your ass I'm going to cover all 6 of them. So here we go with number 2 next. And number 2 does quite well on its own. Not quite as good as issue 1, but not bad, as this is 30 bucks. On average, 30 bucks for issue 2 is what you can get. Again, another Bisley cover. Pretty cool. Asking prices, 20 to 40, right in that same ballpark as what's selling. So this thing has maintained its value over the time, these last couple of years. So that is pretty impressive when you consider a lot of these things just kind of die on the vine over time. Like they get hot, people talk about them, and then all of a sudden they kind of pop up, and everybody wants one until they forget about it, and then they fall back into the ether and the rest of the books and just become white noise. But these actually still continue to do well and meet those asking prices. With that, let's keep it rolling to issue 3, which again, just going through the whole series, all of them are worth finding. Don't think of it as just issue 1 because it gets the most, but you can still get 20 to 50 bucks on average sales for issue 3 as well. Not bad. If you can find this cheap enough to get out of a box cover price thereabouts, you might have done well. Listings, 40 to 60. Again, no small numbers here. Moving on. That's 3. So we got to get to issue 4, obviously, next. And we have issue 4. And that's another one that's kind of in that same kind of range as we've been in there. And could get a little bit higher as average sales go from 30 to 75. But still, same kind of ballpark. Mind you, these aren't the easiest things to find, especially individually, because this one, I couldn't find any individual listings for issue 4. So if you're trying to complete out a set, that also makes things tough because they're not all out there and always available. So you might have to do some digging or get lucky for some of these because they actually are a little tough. Dark Horse at the time wasn't publishing a ton of stuff. I mean, they're publishing a lot these days, but as far as print runs go, they weren't that high. So some of these could be tough. There we go. First 4. So let's look at issue 5 next. As you might guess, that's what we have on tap. Oops, sorry for the double jump there. But also, pretty popular cover, as you might guess. We got a female starring on the front of this one. This does same kind of deal as the rest. 25 to 40. Not bad as far as actual sales go. Asking prices, 40 to 60. All of these solid books if you can find them. The other note I have here on this issue 5 is we got a 9.8 of this one particularly listed for $250. So we had $350 on issue 1, but even issue 5 and a 9.8 listed for $250. Not small numbers that we're talking about. But there we go. We've got the 5 issues. That's the whole mini. No, it's not. I told you at the beginning there was one more. I'm not going to do it as one more for the road because it's part of the set. So we're just finishing up the set with our final issue here and our final 6th issue of the mini series. And there it is, our final cover for you to look for. Another Bisley. And this one gets a little bit of a bump, a little bit of a premium, 25 to 50 instead of that 30 or 25 to 40. It's the final issue. Sometimes you get a little extra on that final issue. But with that listings go, I found one, $50. So once again, you're not going to find a ton of these out there. Not a lot of options online, at least. But maybe digging at your shop, you might get lucky and find these things again for a decent price, and you can see what you can get on them. As if you can manage to complete a set, those things are $400 plus. I've seen $400, I've seen $575, $400 and up if you can get all 6 issues. So that is a big number for a 6-issue miniseries that is basically modern day. I mean, I forget what year this came out, but this was in the last, decade or so. So keep that in mind. Not bad. Not a bad return if you can find these cheap enough. So with that said, that's all I got for you this week. Hopefully you found that interesting. Hopefully I gave you some fun books for you to go out there and hunt. Maybe gave you some new books you've not seen before. Even if I have covered these many years ago, sometimes it's still good to bring some stuff back, and we'll take a second look at it. So with that all said, plenty more content coming your way. Hopefully you're on board. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. Make sure you check me out on Whatnot tomorrow and check out the Hot 10 starting up at 9 p.m. every Friday without fail. And with that said, I'll see y'all later with some more content. All right.